Hello, everybody. Hello again. So just before our intermission, we talked about, Joseph, on behalf of Dr. Bocali, talked a little bit about big dreams. So big dreams is a term from Carl Jung, who's the founder of modern analytical psychology. What big dreams are vivid, memorable dreams that turn to stay with you. It could be one of your childhood dreams. It could be something a dream that you've had last year. They stay fresh in your mind. Mundane, small dreams, they come and go, but big dreams, they always stay with you. And I want to talk about a big dream that I've had in my life. This is a dream that really inspired me to write a book about my experience, as well as sharing my experience with you publicly. So this is a dream that I had about 11 years ago, when I just had my first child, Aria. Hello. And in this dream, I was alone, and I was hanging on to a zip line, grabbing tightly and trying to cross an open ocean. And it was during a dark and thunderous storm. The wind is howling, the waves are pounding, and the rain was coming down hard. It was pretty precarious situation that I was in, for sure. And then these two whales, they surfaced from the deep water, and they swam to me. As they passed under me, they blew a big splash of water. And to this day, and every time I think about this dream, I could still feel the feeling of suspended in midair, and also the cold water drops that hit my skin as I woke up. The water vapor from the whale's breath. And when the water hit my skin, I just felt really joyful. It was a very exhilarating and awestruck feeling when I woke up. So you may be thinking right now, this dream is so bizarre. What does this dream mean? And I didn't understand what this dreams mean for a really long time. Until this year, as I became knowledgeable about dream science and research, I started to think about the context of this dream. And things started to make sense to me. So I'm going to walk you through how to analyze this dream, and you can get an idea of how to work with your own dreams just by following this example. The key to analyze a dream is to dissect your dream. So in this dream, there are different elements involved. There was the zip line, there were waves, ocean, and there was a storm, and then there are whales, and each of them have different meanings. And you kind of have to visualize yourself in that situation in order to understand this situation and how it impacts your emotions. So how would you feel if you're hanging to a zip line over an open ocean? Definitely scared. And lonely. And how would you feel about being under thunders and lots of wind and heavy downpour? A storm would represent a lot of strong emotions and conflicts as well. Turmoil, anger. But storms also bring about changes. The ocean or water typically symbolizes your emotions, your unconsciousness. And the whales, what do you think of whales? They're big, they're biggest animal in the world. So they're significant. They come out of the deep ocean. It's something out of my unconsciousness. Whales are also very family-oriented animals. They tend to stay with their family for life and have very strong spiritual bonds. So these two whales, one is big and one is small. One is a mother, and the other one is a calf. And as they were breathing water into me, they were literally breathing life, new life into me. What this dream means to me is that I was in a lot of conflicts. I was in an unhappy situation in life. And the solution to my problem is my relationship with my children. And indeed, over the last 11 years, I have shifted from a previously very career-focused life to one that honors my relationships with my husband, with my children, and with my extended families. I've discovered tremendous joy from this process of transformation. Since I decoded this dream, my other dreams started to make sense to me. And based on the interplay of my dreams and my life, I have written this new book, Navigate Life with Dreams, a guide to happiness and peace by working with your own dreams. I have 3 insights from this particular dream. And the first is the relationship between parents and children. They're fundamental to anyone. We all have parents, and some of us have children. Your relationship with your parents, that's from the childhood, from our childhood, that's our past. Dreams hold the records to your past. And the relationships with your children, as adults, as parents, we're adults, and we have the ability to make decisions that shape their childhood. And when we get insights from our dreams, we can use the knowledge to help guide our decisions. The second insight that I received from this dream is the source of our happiness is our relationships. Our relationships are also the source of the opposite of happiness, misery. You can have a really well-off life, but if you're not getting along with your loved ones in life, you're not happy. Or you can go through difficult times in lives, like Dr. Bacali's parents in the Bay Area. By having their son with them, they'll feel okay. And the last insights that I got from this particular dream is that our lives are spiritual journeys. They're not just going through life, work hard, achieve things. We're here, we think, we experience, and we feel. And what is the goal for this life? Is to have happiness. The goal for our lives is to accomplish happiness through our relationships. That's Dr. Bacali's topic. I'm going to just run through these next slides about the kettles. Okay, so my next presenter is the storyteller in residence, the First Nations storyteller in residence at the Vancouver Public Library. He's also the director of Kwantlen Cultural Center. He's a storyteller, he's also a poet and a playwright. And his name is Joseph Dunderand, and he's here to share with us his take on spirituality and how it affects our psychological states. Let's welcome Joseph.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Am I on? Can you hear me? I'm going to be talking about anything but what she just said. So, would that be all right? Because when she approached me, I was like, oh my God, Linda, I can't remember my dreams. I'm like one of those guys. And she's like, oh no, it's okay, they'll love you. And I'm like, okay. So, I'd like to apologize first for being a little overdressed for today. So, people are always like, Joseph, what's your style? And it's like, Walmart. And so, so anyways, I'll just talk and then I'll read you a story because that's kind of what I do, if that'll be all right. I teach a lot with kids, and I was just the storyteller in residence at the Vancouver Public Library this year, and I realized I didn't have a lot of material for children. My plays are more adult, my poetry is for sure. And so I wrote a manuscript of short stories for children, and I'd always called myself a poet and playwright, and I think it was the first time I took on the name of a storyteller, and my calendar's booked solid ever since that, because people want to hear stories. And I remember getting my badge from VPL to get into to access the library. And on it said Joseph Dunderand, FN storyteller, sorry. And my first meeting was with all these high-end banker dudes and academics that are at the head of the Vancouver Public Library, and I just said thank you for I'm honored to be an effing storyteller. And they're like, oh no, change it. I was like, no, I love it, man. I'm an effing storyteller. So, anyways, like I said, I teach a lot with schools at our cultural center. We have schools that come through there once a week at least, and we do interpretive programming. We teach cedar weaving, and I do storytelling, and we teach them this game called Slahal. Do anybody know what that is? We call it the bone game. It's kind of a guessing game, but it's a huge gambling game in the States where first place can be like $50,000 to $100,000 if you win. And I always tell the kids, when you go home tonight, you tell your parents that the Indians taught you how to gamble. And they're like, oh no, don't tell them that. But with kids, I always play a game. So I'm going to play a game with you. What grade are you guys in? Oh, what grade are you in? Where's the little man and sister? What grade are they in? Yeah. What grade are you in? 2. You? Right on. So the game is, I'll give you a word in my language, and then you guys can yell out, throw stuff if you want, yell out what you think it might mean in English. Unfortunately, our language was pretty much lost, so I only know swear words. No, I won't do swear words. But, oops, sorry. Keep thinking this thing's here. Can you see that from there? Yeah. I didn't shave either. I should have shaved. I didn't shave, so I apologize. I'm raising 3 kids on my own, so I got time for everything's worked out time, and shave is like way over here somewhere. So the word is mokwia. Can you guys say that loud? Mokwia. Mokwia. Yeah. So go ahead, try and yell it out. You won't get it, but go ahead. Somebody who gets it gets a prize. Yeah. Sunset? No. Good guess. Pardon me? No, river is stalo. Dreams? No, not mountain. Hey? No. No. We don't have souls, I think. We have we call them shwalis. They're spirits. Yeah. No. No. Bird? No. No. Hey? It's got to be an animal? Why? Because natives are all about animals. It's interesting with kids because it kind of shows how much they actually know about natives, you know? So you're like, animals, totem poles. No, salmon? No. This is the worst year of fishing. I don't know if you guys eat fish? It was the worst year I've ever seen it. No? Good guess. No. Hey? Nope. Shadows? No. Is mine? I've got like 3 shadows. No. Trauma? No. No. Hey? Buffalo? No, wrong part of the world. Okay. Hey? No. Dandaran? No, that's my last name. No. No. Hooligans? No. Do you like eating them? Yeah, hooligans are really good. Hey? Yeah, I'll give you a hint. There's always a kid in the class that wants a hint. I was just going to lay down on the bed and do a performance piece for you, but this is actually what Linda is giving us for payment. This is a nice bedding, yeah. For me and my dog, who now sleeps with me, unfortunately. A hint. Hey, say it again? No. Oh, the meaning of it? Oh, meaning? No. What was that one? Peephole? No, people. Sorry, they said peephole. I was like, no. I'll get to the good stuff after. I only have limited. How much time do I have? Because Linda went over on that dream thing she was talking about. Okay, hint. It's part of your body. Bum? No, you want to know what bum is? Because I know it. It's lucknutch. Yeah, it means skinny bum. So. No. 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 Toes? No. No. Good guess. No. No. Tongue? Mouth? No. No. Yeah. Hey? Emotion? Is that part of your body? I haven't found that part yet. Hey? No. No. What? Face? No. 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 My face, I got beat up about 5-6 years ago, and these guys knocked me out and kicked me in the face with work boots, and I had to get my whole face sewn up, and right before I went under, I was like, can I get the Brad Pitt look? And she's like, no. And I only have one eyebrow, too, so I couldn't get Brad Pitt. Come on, Mokuya. No, good guess. No, no. What? Elbow. Was that American? Is that how you say American? Elbow? No. No. Do you want a last hint and then, okay, we got to figure out who actually yells it out first, okay? The guy that said belly was the closest. There. Who said that? Come up here. Come on. Yell it out for them. Belly button, yeah. This is a copy of my children's play, so yeah, you're welcome. Thank you. Good guess.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries. Okay, second act. Okay. Just kidding. Or do you want to just play games with me? So, there's so much stuff here. Story. Yeah, kids are so disappointed when they find out it's belly button. So, this is a short story. Like I was telling Linda, I think a lot of my work does come from dreams. I think it's later in the day they kind of come to me, or when I sit down and write. I just start with a blank page of paper, and like a painter, I just start writing, and then all of a sudden I'm like, where the hell did that come from? Like, because I've never met a Sasquatch, but I'm writing about them like crazy. So I must be dreaming about them. Anyways, I'll finish with this. Yep. So at the end of it, don't throw anything at me, okay? Or just snap your fingers. I'm the new artistic director of Vancouver Poetry House, which is all about slam poetry. I just started that job. But at their gigs, they snap their fingers, which is good. Okay. Whoop. We were talking backstage about how when we forget something, we'll take a drink of water to make it look like we're. Oh, that's vodka. No, it's good. I was actually an alcoholic by the age of 19 and a drug addict by the age of 26, so I'm clean. This isn't. Though I do heroin once in a while. Oh no, I don't do heroin. I was just in Mexico, and I was going to go down there, and I told my kids I'm going to take peyote and walk out in the desert and then get some really inspiring poetry, and they just looked at me and, what's peyote? And it's like, okay. So, this is a story about a sturgeon. Do you guys know what a sturgeon is? Anybody? Yeah. A magical sturgeon. Oh shit! Sorry. I just swore. I come from a long line of swears. I actually wear glasses. And the only time I read is in the toilet, so they're probably filthy. That's why I tell everybody to read my poetry, sitting on the poet. A magical sturgeon. In the water sat a sturgeon, born there, so they say, thousands of years ago. Though the sturgeon themselves have been here for 200 million years, it was at first a little egg, a big egg, born into the river. Now the sturgeon is back, but how did it get here? How did the first sturgeon come to be? Earth and the river, moons and suns and clouds, time. Thousands of years and the sturgeon has seen it all. But what gift does the sturgeon have for us? The story of this magical sturgeon begins near our village of Squalettes, where waters divide. This is a place as old as the sturgeon. How big is a sturgeon? She is well over 100 pounds and about 6 feet long, with old gray skin covering her still razor-sharp spines, some worn down by the years of brushing the bottom of this magnificent river's bottom. Her belly is smooth, white, and she has black eyes. These eyes of the sturgeon love day and eyes that love the night. As the magical sturgeon swims along the shores of Squalettes, 2 young Kwantlen girls, sisters, push their father's dugout canoe onto the river and begin to paddle out to the middle of the river. They have come to try and spear the giant sturgeon so they may bring the fish back to their village and feed everyone for the long winter ahead. They have come to spear the sturgeon, the magical sturgeon, the one that has become legend because it cannot be caught by anyone. The magical sturgeon swims towards the dugout canoe of the 2 Kwantlen girls, who were told by their mother that they were to go to the river and take 1 sturgeon for their supper. They were also told that they were to leave something for the river. Their mother gave them 2 big pieces of bread and 2 big pieces of smoked fish. They were told to throw the bread and the fish to the river once they had taken a sturgeon. They were to throw the food to the river as an offering of thanks for the river for providing the family with a meal. The 2 sisters sat in their dugout canoe and dropped their spear hook into the water and let it touch the bottom of the river. They waited for the magical sturgeon to swim into the barbed hooks of the mighty spear made by their father. Morning turned into midday and into the afternoon as both sisters began to get hungry. They knew they must not eat the food offering, but they must give it to the river when the river gives them a sturgeon. They waited and waited until the older sister decided that she would eat only half of the food offering, 1 piece of the bread and 1 piece of the smoked fish. She began to eat, but the cries of her little sister were too much, so the older sister gave her the rest of the food offering. They both sat there in their father's dugout canoe in the middle of the river with their spear hook sitting on the bottom, waiting for the magical sturgeon to appear. They both sat there full-bellied and sleepy when suddenly the spear hook was moving as a large sturgeon became hooked down below at the bottom of the river. Then the sturgeon took off and began to drag the boat and the 2 sisters down river further and further away from their village of Squalettes. The older sister held on as best she could, but her little sister could not hold on any longer, and she fell into the river as the sturgeon began to get tired, and the older sister stood up and began to pull the spear and the sturgeon into the dugout canoe. The older sister paddled and paddled in search of her little sister, but she was gone. The older sister cried as she heard the river speak, "Where's my food offering?" Over and over, the older sister could hear the river's words. The older sister paddled back to their island, and she walked into Squalettes with the largest sturgeon ever seen. They say it was the magical sturgeon. They say it is the one that no one could catch. Everyone was happy and sang songs and began to cut the magical sturgeon into pieces for each family of the village. Everyone was happy except the older sister, who was sad because she had not offered the river the food like she was told to do, and it was the river who had taken her little sister. As she sat there and cried for her little sister, a sholam, or Indian doctor, brought her the backbone of the magical sturgeon and told her she must bring this to the river and give it back as an offering of thanks. The older sister did what she was told to do by the sholam. She walked down to the river and got in her dugout canoe and paddled to the exact spot that she had speared the magical sturgeon. She paddled to the exact spot where the river had taken her little sister, and she tossed the mighty backbone of the largest magical sturgeon back to the river. As the bones fell to the bottom of the river, the older sister could hear her little sister's voice singing the song they always sang when they went fishing or when they went to the river to offer back the bones of the fish that they had been given by the river. Hey, yo, hey, yo, 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 hey, hey, yo, hey, yo, 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 hey, hey, yo, hey, yo, hey, yo, hey, yo, hey. She could hear her little sister singing her song, and when the older sister looked up from the river, there she was on the shore walking home singing the song of thanks. The river has given her back as thanks for the offering of the bones of the magical sturgeon. Thank you very much. I said snap, snap. You're all going to wake up tonight dreaming, what the hell is this happening? Oh, okay. I do birthdays, bar mitzvahs, and weddings, so just hook me up. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Joseph, for the wonderful story and the singing as well. I want to share with you that this last summer I had a very good fortune of traveling to Haida Gwaii with my family. For those of you who don't know, Haida Gwaii was Queen Charlotte Islands. It's a First Nations community on the North BC coast near Alaska. Haida Gwaii means islands of the Haida people. It's really a significant trip for me as a newcomer to Canada. I grew up in China, one of the oldest civilizations in the world. And moving to North America, I always felt there's not much culture on this continent. But this trip really changed my perspective. So the Haida people have lived there for over 14,000 years. 14,000, that's several thousand years before the pyramids were built. And they have really complex and sophisticated spiritual view, social view, as well as art, very highly evolved. The Haida people, there were about 30,000, over 30,000 Haidas living in Haida Gwaii at the first point of European contact in the late 1700s. So 30,000 people, that's close to the population of West Vancouver. From late 1700 to late 1800, the population had a major reduction. It went from 30,000 to about 300, mostly due to the smallpox epidemic that took place in 1863. There used to be villages scattered all throughout Haida Gwaii, but because most people died from disease, the survivors were traumatized. They deserted their village. They had to consolidate into 2 villages, that 2 major settlements that there are today. But I am happy to share with you that while we were there, we really experienced a resurgence of community spirit in Haida Gwaii, and mainly from their practice of potlatch. Potlatch is a ceremony. It's a ritual of giving and sharing with people in your community. And what's interesting is in outside societies, when people have accumulated wealth, they would invest in the stock market or buy bonds or real estate. But in Haida Gwaii, or most of the First Nations communities that I know, they would organize a potlatch. And these potlatches are really expensive parties for your community. They could cost up to close to $100,000 for each event. And in these events, they would feed the guests, they would entertain the guests, and when the guests leave, they'll give their wealth away. We were very lucky to be invited to a potlatch while we were there, and really witness the warm and happy feeling that are present in Haida Gwaii today. So our next guest, Dr. Leslie Ellis, she's going to talk about working with people who have experienced traumas, and how to work with nightmares, which is a common symptoms of trauma, and overcome the psychological issues and get your life back. I think that's a really important topic for today's world, because we live in an unstable world and a divisive world. And I think commonly people have a lot of fears towards the future. And I think it's important for us to all think about what can be done if we end up experiencing something catastrophic in our lives. Maybe not today, but 10, 20, 30 years from now, to ourselves or to our children. So Dr. Ellis, she is based in North Vancouver, and she is she runs a certification program for therapists who want to incorporate focus-oriented therapy technique into their practice. And this program is specifically geared toward teaching somatic approaches to working with PTSD and complex trauma, as well as dreams and nightmares. And Dr. Ellis recently published a book titled A Clinician's Guide to Simple and Effective Dream Work. Let's welcome Dr. Ellis.
Thank you. Because it's close to Halloween, I thought I would talk about nightmares. You've all had nightmares, right? The kind of dreams where you're being chased by a monster or a dragon, and you're running as fast as you can, but you can tell they're getting closer. And as hard as you try to run, your limbs feel like they're made of cement. And just as they're about to catch you and dismember you and kill you, you're certain that they're going to do this. You wake up and very quickly realize with relief that it was just a dream. And I'm venture to say that we've all had dreams like this. They're very common in childhood and during times of stress Women tend to have more nightmares. And then people with various forms of mental illness, particularly post-traumatic stress disorder, tend to have, I need to put this down, more frequent and distressing dreams. But there are no bad dreams. This isn't just an idea of mine. It's really some of the most well-respected dream researchers and theoreticians throughout history have arrived at this conclusion, including people like Carl Jung and Jeremy Taylor and Eugene Gendlin. They would say that all dreams come in service of health and wholeness. But if you're one of those people who has the kinds of dreams that wake you up frequently with vivid, realistic images of your worst dreams ever, you're going to wonder what could possibly be good about a dream like that. Well, I would say something in the evocative and memorable nature of that dream provides a clue. Because we all dream what is essentially a feature film worth of dreams every night, but the vast majority of these dreams are forgotten. But not so with nightmares. We remember them with great, vivid detail, and they really evoke a response in us. They're literally a wake-up call, a call to action. So for someone who did their Ph.D. in dreams, in nightmares, I've had surprisingly few, but I do remember them very well. In particular, one. And in this dream, I'm in a clear glass box, and I can't get out. And this box is on a river, and it's interesting that we just had a story about a river, because this story is quite evocative of the story that Joseph just told us. But I'm on this rushing river, and I'm being, careening down the current, and then I get caught in this whirlpool, and the glass box is being carried down the whirlpool, and I can tell it's going to take me all the way to the bottom. And I reach up, and there's nothing and nobody there. And I wake up. I'm convinced at this point I'm going to die. And fortunately, I happened to be seeing a Jungian therapist at the time, so I had somewhere to go with this dream. And I told him this dream, and it was very clear that it was a metaphor for two of my near-death experiences. In the incubator, I spent the first 2 months of my life in, where I wasn't expected to survive, was clearly represented by the clear glass box. And then when I was 17, I used to go with my friends. It was the summer between finishing high school and going to university. We used to go into the back roads of Mission to a place called Suicide Creek of all names. And we'd sit at the edge of this great big pool of white water and drink beer and watch the waterfall come down into this massive swirling pool of white water. And I remember my friend Danny Jones said, "Leslie, if you go up to the waterfall and then you swim down about 4 feet, it gets a little bit calm there, and you can go underneath and get to the other side, and you can sit behind the waterfall." So he does this, and I see him doing this. And I'm 17, so I'm immortal and invincible, right? So I'm just like, sure, I'll do that. I was always willing to try things like that. So I went out and swam to the edge of the waterfall, and I went down, but I didn't go down far enough. And so where I went across the water was right at the point where the water hit me the hardest. I could feel the weight of it on my back. It was pushing me down so hard. I swam as hard as I could, but I managed to break the surface just for a second, and someone said, "Yeah, she's in trouble." But then I got sucked back under before I could even take a breath. And I fought, and I swam, and I got pushed deeper and deeper. And then at some point, I just lost that desperate need for air. And a real sense of peace came over me, not resignation actually, but I remember having a thought like, oh, I wonder what my life was going to be like. It seemed so promising, and I guess I'm sort of on to whatever's next. And I really had come to terms with my mortality at that particular age. And then as I sort of I felt a sense of peacefulness and belonging, and wonderful feelings come over me. I never lost consciousness through this whole process. I got pushed out into a very calm patch of water, and I looked up, and there was a shaft of sunlight from way up above. And I realized that my sister was sitting at the edge of the pool up there and probably quite terrified. And I really didn't want that to be the last time that she saw me alive. So I swam up, and my friend pulled me out of the water. And I think they were all very relieved, but I was blinking at them in the sunshine, and it was like being a newborn again, because I literally could not breathe. I think my lungs had kind of suctioned themselves together, so it took every ounce of my strength to get the air back into my lungs. And so I took 3 loud, rasping breaths until finally I started breathing again, and clearly I survived it. So I was lucky. I had someone to talk to about this dream, but too often people don't talk about their nightmares. In fact, it's maybe a third of people, or less than a third of people, generally talk about their nightmares, and then young people in sort of youth and early adulthood, it might be 1 in 10. And this is a problem, because there is a very strong link between nightmares and suicide. And there's a dramatic increase in suicide in youth. It's risen about 50% in the last 10 years. And if you have nightmares, you're 4 times more likely to commit suicide, four times more likely to attempt, 4 times more likely to reattempt. So it seems very important to ask people and invite them to talk about these dreams. My daughter is a 20-year-old, and she had a dream in her first year university, a nightmare that she told me about. But she probably wouldn't have said anything had she not had a mom who was very deeply interested in all things related to dreams. And she said, "Mom," she called me on the phone she goes to school in Montreal, and she said, "I had this dream where I was cutting up a woman in pieces and dismembering her, and it was a gory, bloody mess, and she was really disturbed by this, understandably. She thought maybe she was turning into some kind of a serial killer, and she was really just looking for some direction." And because I work with the nightmares quite a bit, I'm used to the way they present themselves. And nightmares, I think of the blood and the gore as the dream's way of highlighting and underscoring and exclamation marks. It's a way of the dream is saying, pay attention to this. This is really important. And so then I kind of look beyond the melodramatic nature of dreams, because a lot of times they're metaphors. And so I asked her something like, is there something about, your life, or, how you're feeling, that feels really chopped up or divided, or, in pieces in some way? And she said, yes, absolutely yes. She had just spent one of the worst Montreal winters, and in a whole series of bad winters, this was a particularly bad one. And she couldn't get outside for a month. And so she was feeling really, she spent her whole summer hiking in the wilderness. She went up to Alaska. She's a kid who just loves to be outside and feels most herself and most at home in the wilderness. And so she said, yeah, I don't feel like myself here. I feel like I've left a piece of myself back there. I really do feel divided. This really does fit. And once she realized how the dream was speaking to her, she kind of realized also how important, tending to that aspect of herself was, and how, just how deeply important her connection with the wilderness is. She understood why she was feeling really out of sorts, and it also took away all of the creepiness and the goriness of the dream itself, because she understood what it meant. And so and this often happens working with nightmares, is that the nightmare's bringing your attention to something, and then once you understand it, it's not quite so alarming, not quite so gruesome. I had one client who used to always bring nightmares. Her dreams were kind of always like these ones, and we would work with them in a similar way. And after a while, she got to like these dreams. And so when she'd had a particularly violent or gruesome one, she would come to me and say, "Leslie, I've got a really good dream for you today." She actually befriended them. And I mean, so far I've been talking about the kinds of dreams that are more normal. They're called idiopathic nightmares. They're more normal nightmares, not associated specifically with trauma. And it is possible to understand them as metaphoric and to see them as a call to action or to face something in our lives that we're afraid of, but that we need to, that maybe challenges us, that gives us a wake-up call. And it's possible to learn from these dreams and befriend them. But there are other kinds of dreams. The post-traumatic dreams are different. And so what about these dreams? They tend to be a direct replication of the trauma, and the distress they cause and the recurrent nature is much more disturbing and much more problematic. And this is the type of dream I worked with for my doctoral research. I worked with the Vancouver Association for the Survivors of Torture, VAST for short, training the therapists in how to work with refugees who had severe trauma dreams and severe PTSD. And these were people who said the nightmares were their main complaint. If only, their nightmares would stop, their life would be much easier. Because it wreaks havoc on mood and sleep, makes it really hard to function. So it's hard to say that there's something good about these dreams. But what can be good about them is how you respond to them. If they are a call to action and you respond, then something does come of that. And I found with everybody that we worked with, their dreams started to evolve. One person just completely stopped having nightmares altogether. And all of them started to change and become gradually more toward the normal end of dreaming. And my sample was really small, but there's a lot of research in the last 20 years that shows that nightmares are very easily treatable, surprisingly easily, in fact. There's a kind of modality called imagery rehearsal therapy that has had so much empirical testing, it's considered the gold standard of nightmare treatment. And it's essentially this, is just to write down your nightmare and then write down a new version of that dream, something different, anything. You can change it in any way you want. And then rehearse that a couple of times. And, not necessarily before you go to sleep, but you can do it before you go to sleep. And this re-scripting of the nightmare reduces their frequency and distress. And it also reduces PTSD symptoms. So there's like a double benefit to treating nightmares, because if you treat regular PTSD during the day, you can reduce the PTSD symptoms, but the nightmares continue the same. But if you treat the nightmares, you reduce their frequency and distress, and the PTSD symptoms go down. And in my little sample, the symptoms went down by about 50%. So, and we only had one session. So it seems really kind of too good to be true that there's such obviously simple, effective treatments. But the sad fact is that way too few people actually get the help they need. And this is kind of a perfect storm, because first of all, people who have nightmares don't believe they can be treated, and so they won't talk about them. And the worse their nightmares are, the less likely they are to think that there is a solution to them. And then next, in sort of mental health clinics, in hospitals, in sleep clinics, all the places where you might screen, doctors' offices where you might screen for nightmares, which I think should happen given their link to suicide. But the vast majority of those places, they don't ask about nightmares. And so if they don't ask about them, no one talks about them, then it's really not known that this is a problem. And then at the other end of the spectrum, the therapists are not generally trained in these simple techniques. So when someone if they go through the process of getting referred to some sort of help, only about a quarter of them say they get effective help. And so there is all of this potential that for improvement, basically. There's a potential for improvement at every level. And I think that there's a kind of a common thread in what's wrong with this sort of asking and treating nightmares, and it all stems down to avoidance. These are really uncomfortable dreams, and so people don't want to talk about them, and people don't want to ask about them. And what I would say about that is that what they found in, breaking apart the studies of all the nightmare treatments and just taking a little piece of it, or just even a control condition, asking someone to imagine a safe place, or just asking them to write their dreams down, virtually everything they try helps. So even though the tendency is to think, oh, I'm going to make it worse if I ask about their nightmares, or the person talking about the nightmare would say, oh, they're going to think I'm crazy or disturbed. In fact, everything besides avoiding it, it makes it better. And one of my mentors, Eugene Genlin, who developed a method called focusing, a body-oriented way of working with dreams and in therapy, said this. I hope I can remember exactly how he put it. He said, what is true is already so. Owning up to it doesn't make it worse. Not talking about it doesn't make it go away. People can stand what is true, for they are already enduring it. And for sure, people with recurrent nightmares are already enduring it. It's not like we're going to keep it a secret from them if we don't talk about it. They're clearly aware that this is happening to them. So one more example I'm going to give you, and just an encouragement to talk about these dreams and not to shy away from them. There was a study done recently by a Polish researcher who looked at 500 dreams from survivors of the concentration camps at Auschwitz. And by now, it's been a while, only 10% of those dreams now were the recurrent, replicative, exact replicas of their experience in the concentration camp. And 90% of their dreams were starting to weave in current experiences with the past, or to be metaphorical representations of their experience. Both of these things are dreams that have inherent healing potential, or are indications that the person has started to recover. And the researchers concluded that to repress these dreams would turn out to be a serious mistake, because they believed that all of their dreams had healing potential, either by themselves or in conjunction with therapy. And they gave one example of a man who had started to have dreams of the concentration camp, but with his young wife as part of the scene. And there was a feeling in the dream that they were definitely going to survive. So even with the dreams of something as horrific as Auschwitz, they can be considered healing and helpful dreams. And so I want to leave you with this idea that, if you have nightmares, to talk about them, to share them. If they seem overwhelming, talk to someone who knows how to help you. And really pay attention to your nightmares, pay attention to your dreams, because they do come in service to health and wholeness. They're a wake-up call. They want you to respond. They're pointing the way toward safety. There are no bad dreams. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Alice. I really like what you said about there are no bad dreams. They're really just opportunities for us to get to know ourselves better and to get better. And my personal experience also reaffirms that dreams, they are basically navigation tools. They're kind of like your GPS system as you go through the journey of life. Dreams show up when things aren't happening the way they should be, when things aren't sitting right, and they give you clues as to how to address the problems in your life. My next guest is Dr. Anna Mosul. She is the founder of Dream Theater, and she also has a private practice in Vancouver, focusing on dream-centered psychotherapy. Dr. Mosul, excuse me. Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you, Linda.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay, so many depth psychologists and mythologists believe that there is one essential task for each soul, so that it would be possible to live your entire life and do everything just right, but neglect that one task and the deeper meaning of your life would go unfulfilled. On the other hand, it's possible to disappoint others, not be understood by others, to betray certain collective norms and cherished values, and yet still complete your task and feel fulfilled at the moment of death. This same philosophy is very beautifully depicted in the Gnostic Gospel of Thomas, in the quote that reads, "If you bring forth what is within you, it will save you. If you do not bring forth what is within you, it will destroy you." My name is Anna Mosel, and I'm here to talk with you today about the destiny line of the soul. Those moments in life and dreams that create a push-pull between the part of you that wants things to stay exactly as they are and the part that wants to break through into new experience and new ground. I'm introverted by nature, so I tend to shy away from public speaking events. But when I was asked to speak at the Dream Salon today, and I heard what the date would be, I knew I had to say yes. I lost 2 of my mentors last year, 2 women who I admired greatly and who made significant imprints on my life. Women that I studied under, women who provided me with a strong enough foundation to risk speaking out and stepping further along my own destiny line. Those women are Marion Woodman and Gina Ogden. Gina Ogden actually died 1 year ago today, on the very day. And today is also Dia de los Muertos, the Day of the Dead in Mexico and South America. It's also All Souls Day in the Christian tradition. The last time I spoke with Gina, she said to me that this was her year of completion, and that it really is okay. I'm ready to pass over into spirit. And I have wonderful guides on all planes. May we all be so blessed to feel this way when our own time comes. I think of depth psychology and dream work as having 3 essential phases. So the first phase is the jumping off point. And I've made art pieces, these are all art pieces that I've done, that depict these 3 stages. The myth of Inanna begins with the words, "She turned her ear towards the great below." And I think this beautifully depicts this moment. This is also typically the, "oh shit" moment. This is not what I was expecting when I signed up to do dream work. Because the process of working with dreams is a process of going down. It's going into confusing territory. It's going into the shadows. It's going into the nebulous. It's going into confusion and sometimes disintegration for periods of time. This is depicted well by the archetypal psychologist James Hillman, who calls this landscape the feminine soul, and says it's in direct opposition to the masculine spirit, which is kind of our everyday consciousness mode of being, which is always seeking ascension, always looking for the next goal, always attempting to seek understanding, clarity, and precision. So, the depth psychological movement of dream work is a movement down, which flows very nicely into the second phase, which is facing the demons of the past. Ties in a little bit with Leslie's conversation and talk on nightmares. So these are the traumatic moments and memories of our lives that we all have to various degrees. And paradoxically, it's the desire to flee, minimize, or deny these difficult moments in the past that actually bind individuals to repeating them endlessly in various disguised forms. So, facing these demons and these traumas of the past is essential to do through the lens of the present day in order to gain enough energy and momentum to break the enormous power of repetition compulsion that's at the heart of traumatic memories. So the third phase is approaching destiny. I think my cards are in the wrong order. But that's okay. Sure. So I think of destiny as the true path of the individual soul. It's kind of like the individual blueprint, but this is usually obscured with familial and cultural expectations and experiences. The concept of destiny comes from Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung's theory of dream work, where he says that dreams actually hold a teleological function. And that means that there's a pull in the dream itself that is always inviting and guiding the individual towards the future and the life that they're meant to live. Destiny dreams can come through at any point in the process, but I find they most come through after these first two phases have been worked for quite some time. When I was in graduate school, I attended a conference in depth psychology. And when Marion Woodman took the stage, something came alive in me. Something came alive in my viscera. I don't remember what she said, I don't remember the words, but I will never forget the feelings. It was as if the words she spoke came from deep in the earth itself, and were speaking directly somehow to my body-soul, creating these waves of visceral sensations through me. I wondered if I was alone in this experience, so I looked around to see if anyone else was being a little weird or odd or surprised. And everyone seemed really normal, just writing notes, paying attention, doing their regular thing. That night, I woke from one of the strongest dreams I've ever had in my life. And in it, I was in an old, rustic kind of forest area in this cabin, in a kitchen, and it was just Marion and me. There was this very long oak table, and she stood at one end of it, and I stood at the other. And I remember even thinking in the dream, oh my God, it's kind of fascinating that Marion's in my dream tonight. Just after seeing her today at the conference. I wonder what this could mean, you know? And we were like this. We were almost like staring each other down like two sumo wrestlers or something like that across this long table. And just when I was wondering, what the heck is going on here? Her dream body leapt across the table disappeared, and then she grabbed both of my wrists in this ironclad grip. She stared into my eyes and she said, "Why are you denying your destiny?" And I went, it was like an alternate universe had opened up. There was like this vortex of energy that was created swirling in my bedroom. And you wake from a dream like that, you don't ever forget it. I've never forgotten that dream, and I've certainly never forgotten the feeling. So Marion says that nobody walks towards their destiny line consciously, but rather they're dragged, kicking and screaming and complaining and bargaining. Right? And that has been my experience. In fact, between the dream that I had and the eventual letter that I sent to Marion, I had several dreams that depicted and showed me quite clearly my own reluctance to step onto my path. I will share 2 of these dreams with you. In the first dream, I'm in an underground tunnel, and I'm with my grandmother and my aunt and myself. So we're 3 generations of women, which seems quite significant to begin with. And we come up from this underground tunnel in India where we've been traveling, and there's a priestess there. And she's doing old readings, destiny readings. And she does them with this technique, I don't know if you're familiar with it, of throwing the bones. So she throws the bones and then reads the design of them to tell each of our futures. So she does the reading for my grandmother, then she does the reading for my Aunt Holly, and then when it comes to my turn, I say, I'm not at all sure I want this reading. And I say, well, maybe. Could I get a discount? Like maybe if you could give me 50% off, I'd consider it. So, in the 30-some years of working with dreams that I've been doing, one thing I can say with utter certainty, maybe one of the only things I can say with utter certainty, is that when it comes to destiny, there is no discount. As much as we might want there to be a discount. Although I do understand the part of me that asked for one. It's the part that says, why the hell do I have to do all of this work? Why didn't my mother do some of the work? Why didn't my father do any of his work? What about the previous generations? This seems to be falling on me specifically. And I think that's one of the difficult truths about the destiny line is you often have to work through the unworked complexes of the previous generation before you can even find the entranceway to your own path. But there's also a more compassionate way of looking at it. I've come to feel over the years that each generation does do their own part. And I do know that it's true that there are opportunities here for me that did not exist for my mother, did not exist for my grandmother. And that maybe in a very real way they did fulfill their own destiny, which brought me to the threshold of mine. Marie-Louise von Franz, in her book on dreams and death, talks of a man she was in depth analysis with. And he was complaining to her about all of the work, all of the years, all of the analysis, all of the money he spent to become conscious. And now he was dying. And he was in midlife. He's like, maybe I should have done something else. And that night, he had a dream. And there was a voice that came to him in that dream. And that voice said, do you know the work that you have done to become conscious for these countless generations, both forward and backward? And that still gives me shivers every time I hear it. And I think it's such a beautiful notion. And it's a good plug for dream work. It's community-oriented. It has reverberations. It goes far and wide into places that you might never see in your own lifetime. So in my dream, the priestess did not hide her disgust at my asking for a discount. And her response was to light something on fire and place it under my chair. I could actually feel the fire moving up through my chakras. And then she locked eyes with me and she said, you must create or die. So very clear message from the unconscious coming through. And I do believe I understand what she meant. She meant if I did not create, a part of me would die through never living. And that's the other interesting thing about the destiny line. According to some depth psychologists, if you do not do your task, there is nobody else for your task. There is just you. If you don't do it, it goes undone. So then I have another dream. In this dream, I'm in a ritual circle, community, And again, there's this high priestess, this powerful feminine figure at the center. And I find out at some point along the way that the ritual is being done to decide who amongst us will die. And when I find this out, I get a shiver up my spine, and I'm like, all of a sudden, I no longer wish to participate in this ritual. I'm confronted directly when it becomes my turn. And surprising even to me, I say, I already know that I was chosen to die, and I refuse the call. Feeling quite strong, feeling quite good about myself in that moment, feeling like I was definitely making the right decision. And she locks eyes with mine, and she says, "Do you have anything to wear to your funeral?" It's funny, but it wasn't funny at the time. I have to be honest. I have a shaman friend that said to me once, "We all have 4 doors to the other side." And in this moment, I really thought I had approached one of my doors. In fact, my mind started spinning of all of the ways that I could die within the next few days. Because the psyche doesn't know the difference between psychological death and physical death. So entering into the dreams and stepping onto the destiny line, and why so few people do it, is because it does require a death. It requires a death of the identity, the false identity, that you or we or myself in this dream, I believed that I was. And in that way, it's an initiation. Initiation always has a death at its core. It's always a brush with death. And the Romanian religious scholar Mircea Eliade defines initiation, and I love this definition. Initiation is the beginning of the revelation of one's true self. And Carl Jung defined the individuation journey, the movement, the inner psychic movement towards wholeness, as a series of initiations that had to be survived. So back to Inanna, Sumerian goddess of love, beauty, desire, sex, justice, and war. She covers a lot of ground. Inanna was stripped piece by piece of all appearances and all pretenses until she stood naked before her dark sister, Ereshkigal, in the underworld. At each level, and you could think of these stages as these levels of each level of initiation, her jewelry had to be sacrificed. Her title, her crown, her relationships, her clothing, until nothing remained but the truth. Initiation kind of feels like this, disintegrating, often humiliating, until one is settled on the other side. Then there can be gratitude. Then there can be understanding. So I have another image that I painted that represents this meeting of the sisters. Nearly 4 years after my "Why Are You Denying Your Destiny" dream, when I was beginning my doctoral dissertation, I wrote a letter to Marion Woodman asking her if she would be a member on my committee, and I really didn't feel like it was much of a possibility. I knew how insanely busy she was with her own writing, research, and these body-soul rhythms that were almost impossible to get into and that she was doing all over the world. But the seeds of that dream stayed with me and guided me to try, even when my complexes left me feeling unworthy. The moment that I found out that she agreed to be a member on my committee, I was traveling home and I was visiting family, and I called back from my voicemail and I heard her voice, and it was like the earth dissolved from under me again, just with hearing her voice on the voicemail. And those shivers started again, and it was kind of like, what is this? You know, what is this? It also created a chasm between myself and my family. It was like being at the threshold of my own destiny changed the way that I experienced the present. I felt utterly detached from the regular projective hooks and distorted images that were allowed within my family system. So I dug deep, obviously. I'm working harder than I would if anyone else was on my committee, probably. I worked hard. I wrapped up the complete 320-page manuscript in a plain brown paper with the title carefully written in a black felt Sharpie, and I tied a very simple oatmeal string around it, and I mailed it off to Marion, my sole essence in writing and research. And I couldn't wait for her first words. We set a time to talk after she'd had a chance to read it and review it. And I'm not sure if I already mentioned this, but I had worked within a sealed alchemical vessel, so the entire time, all of the writing, all of the work, I had not shared a word of it with anyone. There are numerous problems grammatically with your writing. And at your age, I don't think you'll ever make the necessary adjustments. So much died in me in that moment that I, again, could hardly hear anything else she said. In fact, all this static started to develop on the phone line, and we could actually seriously only hear each other's every second or third word. We had to end our conversation. I was on a silent retreat at the time, if you can believe it. So I was in the middle of my silent retreat, so I had taken up, set this, and I was just gonna go into this glorious second half of my retreat. And I was left with such disturbance. So our complex connection continued. Subsequent phone calls, subsequent meetings, I'd get on the phone, I'd hear her voice, and I would become 12 years old. I would swear that this would not happen the next time. I am an adult. I can handle this situation. There's some kind of, I would figure out the projections. I would meditate on the projections. I would figure out what was going on. I'd get clear on what I wanted to say. I'd have the points in front of me. I'd meditate. I'd have a crystal in my hand. I'd get on the phone, and that slow descent through the years would start again. Yet, something was happening. Something was changing in me. And I continued to dream deeply with Marion. In one dream, we met tens of thousands of miles below the earth, and she brought me to her own sacred temenos, these wild walls that were something like hay and had crystals woven in them. And above us, way above, there was a carnival that was taking place. And there, she shared with me many of the secrets that she found in her own lifetime of studying dreams. It was like our personal neuroses and shadows and complexes kept colliding on the surface, while below our souls met in the underworld, and our destiny lines intertwined. So I'm sure it's probably obvious by now, but I had a very complicated projection onto Marion. She was something like a cross between the living representative of the divine feminine and the archetypal mother. And basically, I wanted her to be my mom, with a bit of an archetypal edge. And near the end of my research, she wrote a letter to my committee chair holding up the work, asking for several revisions and several changes to be done and implemented. These were not just changes to me. These were things that went against my deepest values. Not all of them. Some of them were simple enough, but a few of them went against my own lived experience and my own felt sense. I had a dream. I am pregnant. It's a glorious feeling. Somehow my mother's there, and she'll take care of the child when it's born. This seems fine until I reflect on it further. And then I'm quite uncomfortable with the situation. And I have the thought for the first time that just maybe I'll be strong enough to take care of the child when it's born. I can take it with me when I move. So obviously, on one level, the child here is the dissertation itself. And the possibility of it being taken by the mother or given to the mother was that I would give over my own power because of my own mother complex. Because it was too hard to hold, and because it was too much of a challenge to step up to. I was honestly in silent anguish about this because I had to either go against a woman that I most admired and risk attaining my Ph.D., something I'd worked 4 years towards, or comply with her wishes and go against my truth. So I held the tension of the opposites as long as I possibly could until finally a third came through. This is the Jungian, the transcendent function. You hold the tension of the opposites in this impossible place, and at some point a third will come through. And that was, I'll write a separate chapter. And in that chapter, I'll outline everything that Marian has asked for. I'll speak to the complicated crossroads we find ourselves at, and then I'll respectfully oppose and bring in my position to each of her points. I did that, and I brought in the dreams that supported that decision. And luckily, she was satisfied, and I was able to successfully defend my dissertation. Even though she invited me to, I did not contact her for many years after this. I was very hurt by what had happened, and I felt much of it had been unnecessary. So, it might have been 4 years, 3-4 years later, I decided to phone her. I got very centered. I did all my practice. I got all my notes down. But I was ready to leave a voicemail. I was ready to leave a message on her machine. The first ring, she picks up, "Hello?" And I shared with her what I was going to say on the answering machine. And she said, "Oh, dear, you've been holding this all this time on your own?" And it was very sweet, and it was very genuine, and it brought tears to my eyes because I had been holding a lot on my own. But I was older, I held my own, and we discussed things in greater depth around what had happened. Marian is no longer with us, and it feels like a lifetime since I had that initial dream. I recently learned that the last book that she was working on before her health deteriorated was on the same topic as my dissertation. And it was to be the culmination of her life's work. It was on the demon lover complex as the core complex that possesses the feminine within a patriarchal society. That work was never completed. But her work lives on in me. And it lives on in the lives of the countless individuals she touched with her rare, unique, strong, beautiful, complicated soul. And the beauty of our connection lives on in me, as well as a desire to continue the work that she started around conscious femininity. I'm very committed to that work. And a revisioning of Love, Dark Feminine Rising. I have the cover of it, but not necessarily the book cover, just the image cover, is my contribution to this body of work. While following my destiny line did not bring me what I expected or what I wanted, it was not fun, and it was certainly not easy, but it brought me what I needed, which was an initiation by fire that forever changed me and woke me from a deep sleep. It is my sincere hope that if you take anything from this talk, it's that when you have such a powerful dream, that you take it seriously and you listen deeply and act on it, even if it scares you, even if it feels impossible at the time. Marian says that the call of destiny costs no less than everything. but in my estimation, it's worth it. It's the only chance of living your own life. It's the only chance of real freedom. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Mozo, for a very dramatic and entertaining presentation. And you've been such a wonderful audience. Really fun to be with you today. We're starting to run out of time. In the interest of getting out of here on time, I want to just leave you with one last thought about dreams. It's a way to use your dreams. It's a different way of using your dreams. In my home, I talk about dreams with my family right at breakfast time. It's a really easy but really important practice because as we have shown you today, dreams are very relevant and they're timely and they pack a lot of information, a lot of emotional information that's important for each person deep down inside. And in our modern society, when we're so busy, everyone's got busy lives, how else can you talk about really important, relevant, emotional communication with your loved ones? Dream is a great way of achieving that, talking about dreams. And in my mind, I think dream could be a community medicine for mental wellness. After today's event, there will be, actually there's a monthly meetup. It's a free monthly meetup that's already in place. The next one will be on November 17th. Anyone can come to this meetup and share about their dreams. You're not there to share your bank card number or social security number, but bring a dream to share and just see what the other people, what kind of feedback they can give you to help you understand it. I also plan to run a workshop to teach people how to understand their own dreams. I'm not going to interpret your dreams for you, but I want to teach you how to interpret your own dreams yourself. You do not need to go to a priest or psychologist or fortune teller to understand your dreams. It's a simple skill to have, and I think it's a very important life skills. There will be also workshops. Dr. Mozo and Dr. Ellis, they both have plans to teach therapists how to incorporate dream work into their practice. If you're interested in any of these future events, please go to Dream Design's website and sign up for our newsletter. We will include we'll have any future event information in our newsletters. Lastly, we're going to draw our Raffle Prize winners. Dr. Barrett, could you come to the stage, please, and help us announce the winners? Dr. Barrett she came last night and arrived late in the evening, and she had a stressful travel. So first, we're going to give out these signed books by our wonderful.
So you want me to pull one of these out?
Yes, that would be great. So the first one is by Dr. Barrett, The Committee of Sleep, and the number is
266008.
266008. Come to the stage, please. Good Could you draw another number? And the next one is A Clinician's Guide to Dream Therapy by Dr. Ellis.
And that is 548004.
This is 266008.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's already signed, but if you want to hang on, I'll put your name on it. Sort of generically signed.
Do we have a... Oh. Thank you. There you go. The next one is A Revisioning of Love by Dr. Mazel.
And that one goes to 548009.
Yay, winner. Could you draw one more? And the last book is Hear and Foretell by Joseph Denderan.
And that
Thank
one
you.
goes
Enjoy.
to 266022. Two zero zero 66. Wait a minute. There's no one. 266022.
Hey. Yes, congratulations.
Thank you.
I won.
Dr. Barrett, could you come with me? Could you come and stand with me here? So next we're going to draw for these Dream Designs pillows. Yeah. You still have tickets out there? Okay.
266017.
Yes. Sweet dreams. And the next one is
548005.
okay. Thank you, Beth.
548003.
No takers?
Maybe it is meant to go to you. No 548003.
You don't have that ticket
still
again, do
here?
you?
Shall we draw again, or I insist that it's hers?
Let's just test it. See if it's really meant to be you.
Okay, one more chance for it to be someone else. 266012
Yeah.
is present. Congratulations.
And give these pillows. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Okay.
And
And this is for what?
for more pillows. We still have pillows to give out. I don't want to take them home.
I thought you were going to point out a particular pillow that this one was for. Okay. 266016. There's our winner, I guess. No, they're simply leaving.
Oh, they're simply leaving.
266016.
Oh,
Slow reaction time, but you win one.
one for your son, one for your husband.
All Or actually, anyone could do that on any of these that there hasn't been a claim at first when I reread it.
Must be meant
Get
to
ready
be.
to go.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Enjoy. Okay. You're really good at this now.
548018. Wave your hand if it's you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Congratulations. Oh, this one.
This is a whole ticket.
Yeah,
no one
that
can
one's
have
not
the other
gonna-
half of that. Whoever didn't get your ticket.
There you go.
548006.
Yes. Hey. Do you want to draw one more? Congratulations.
It's a wonderful day. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. I'm glad you enjoyed that.
And 548020. Five, 48020.
Last pillow.
You're so honest. No one's screaming me.
Oh, you don't want a pair? Congratulations. Have wonderful dreams. And lastly, I want to give thanks to our wonderful speakers tonight. This afternoon, sorry. And thank you for a lovely get-together of community dreaming. Today is the last day before daylight savings end, so we can all go home and enjoy an extra hour of sleeping and dreaming.
And thank you so much for organizing. Lovely.
Thank you. This is my daughter Aria, and that's my son Layden. And yes, we do talk about dreams pretty much every day. Thank you.